Coming to you live from the JRE Tobacco Aladino Mobile Studios, it's the Cigar Pulpit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of the Burn, Nick, and today we're going to get into, it's a little more Cigar 101, but it's actually Cigar 101 for experienced cigar smokers. Because I'm sure all of us have been asked, I'm interested in cigars, where do I start? And so today, we are going to go through where to start. We're going to go through what to tell this individual that's interested in what we do. Because unfortunately, a lot of times, I think people give either incorrect advice, incomplete advice, and it just kind of gets a little muddy. Sometimes it can be a little too complicated of an answer, and we overwhelm that person, and then suddenly they're just like, this is too much, I'm out. Or we give too generic of an answer, and they don't get enough information, and they don't get the love that we get. And so today, we're gonna go through some of what makes a good beginner cigar. And we are going to actually build, in my opinion, the beginner cigar starter pack. So if you've never smoked a cigar before, or if you've only smoked a handful, or if you know people that have never smoked a cigar before, or only smoked a handful, and they're asking you for advice, these are the type of cigars that I want you to experience. But first, I'm going to fire up a cigar of my own so that I can experience one as we talk. And so today, I am going to be smoking the Diamond Crown. I'm going to be smoking the Diamond Crown by J.C. Newman. This is the Robusto number 4, which is actually 5.5 by 54, so it's a kind of an extended Robusto, I guess. They use the word Robusto for like all their sizes. Doesn't matter what the Vitola is. It's Robusto number 3, 4, 5, whatever. It doesn't matter. But this cigar features a Connecticut shade wrapper surrounding premium Dominican long filler tobaccos. It was blended by Carlito Fuente in the Dominican Republic for the J.C. Newman Company. And this cigar features creamy, medium-bodied notes of cashew, cedar, nutmeg, and pepper. It's a good cigar. And I'm looking forward to smoking this while we talk about cigars to recommend to people. And so it's time to cut the cigar. And the official cutting is brought to you by 2guyscigars.com. That's the number 2guyscigars.com. 2 Guys have been around for over 40 years, and they are the trusted name in the cigar industry. Everybody knows 2 Guys, but if you don't, please give them a try. You won't be sorry. Family owned and operated, 2guyscigars.com does the very best to provide a great selection, fair prices, and excellent customer service. So head on over to 2guyscigars.com for your next cigar purchase. Tell them that the Cigar Pulpit sent you. And remember, that's the number 2guyscigars.com. And with that, it's time to go ahead and cut. Ooh, I hit the mic. Cut the cigar. There's schmuckus coming out of this thing. And the thing is, when I look in there, I don't see any schmuckus. So I'm thinking it must be like jammed down in there somehow or another. I don't know. I need to figure out a way to clean this. Really get all up in there and clean my cutter. Anyway, so we're going to get this thing going. Nice clean cut. I will say, as I'm sitting here recording, there are some pretty nasty thunderstorms looming in the universe outside my house. So I'm hoping that I don't lose power at any given moment. It could happen. I hope it doesn't, but it could. But I'm looking forward to these storms, because I love a good thunderstorm. Who doesn't love a good thunderstorm? Now, there is a point when it becomes too much of a thunderstorm and suddenly you're fearing for your life. I don't like that. I don't like it to be violent, but I do love a really good thunderstorm. What was I saying? Oh, I'm looking forward to the cut in the temperatures. My God, it's going to be in the 80s, like going forward after tonight. But it has been miserable, freaking hot this week. It's been so gross, so humid, so humid. Anyway, I'm going to fire this thing up, and then we're going to get on subjects.
Some say cigars are all the same. It's just not true. It's you I have to blame.
Well, I don't know, 'cause what I know, there is a cigar called Aladino. Corojo.
Aladino Corojo. Aladino Corojo. They say authentic, so we're not confused, while the others say it's a word that's just abused.
I guess that's so. They can't compete. At least I'm sure Aladino can't be beat.
Corojo. Aladino Corojo. Aladino Corojo. Aladino Cigars use authentic Corojo tobacco from JRE Tobacco. This is the greatest commercial you ever heard.
Yeah. All right. So what makes a good beginner cigar? We are going to start off with a myth. The myth is that a good beginner cigar must be mild. I don't think that's necessarily the case. In reality, a good beginner cigar should be enjoyable. And there's a difference. Some mild cigars are fantastic. This Diamond Crown, for example, I personally find it to be more on the mild side. In the little description that they had online, they say medium. Maybe when it gets a little further in. But I tend to feel like it's more of a mild thing. However, some mild cigars taste like cardboard or smoking air. And quite frankly, that's not what we want to give people. At least not what we want to give them if we want them to actually enjoy the experience. The simple fact of the matter is they have expressed an interest in smoking a cigar. The last thing in the world we should do is give them a good cigar or give them a cigar that is boring, because that doesn't sell the experience in any way, shape, or form. So I would much rather give somebody a cigar that is perhaps mild to medium, that has some flavor, than a flavorless mild cigar. So with that being said, the first rule for me, in terms of what makes a good beginner cigar, is we need to avoid nicotine bombs. And a lot of people get hung up on this. You get a lot of people that maybe they're confused and they think, oh, it's got a Connecticut wrapper, it must be mild. There's some really strong Connecticut cigars. I will specifically say, and I mean no judgment by this, no negativity, I should say, because I do like this cigar a lot. A lot of people, I have heard many people say the Perdomo 10th Anniversary Champagne is a good beginner cigar, and it is absolutely not. It is absolutely not a good beginner cigar. It's strong. It is a nicotine bomb, and it will have somebody feeling like shit if they're not used to smoking cigars. Aside from the blend, in order to avoid having somebody have a negative nicotine experience, make sure they're not smoking on an empty stomach. We've all done that. We've all been there where we've had that one cigar that was maybe just a little too strong for us based upon the amount of food that we've eaten, and we start feeling a little, whatever. We don't want them to get dizzy. We don't want them to turn green, and we certainly don't want them to get to the point that they're sick and they swear off the idea of cigars forever. So the first thing you should do with a new smoker, and this isn't even about the cigar, this is just prepping for the cigar, eat first. Maybe go to lunch and then have a cigar after lunch or something like that. Have some water nearby. Doesn't hurt to have a beverage. Take your time. You all know this. You all know that cigars are not something to be rushed through. It is something to be savored, enjoyed, and to take your sweet-ass time with. And if you're not taking your sweet-ass time with it, you're not doing it right. And the other thing is, they shouldn't be worried about impressing anybody. I can't tell you how many times I've been out with brand new smokers and they're worried about how to hold it, how to do this, how to puff, how to put the most amount of smoke in it. It's not that. It's all about just getting used to having a rhythm with the smoking, keeping it lit, and you know, not inhaling. So many people want to inhale right off the bat. That is not that's the other thing you ought to be, you know, trying to discourage. Look, the bottom line is it's their first cigar. They're not prepping for a new career or a heavyweight prize fight that they have to train for 6 months for. This is something simple, and it should be something simple. So, yes, right off the bat, the environment matters. And to that extent, avoid the nicotine bomb. Y'all know what cigars I'm talking about. Don't screw somebody over right off the bat. It's not cool. And definitely don't on purpose give somebody, like, if you're that kind of person that's going to be like, you know, the first cigar you ought to have is the LFD Digger, there's a special place in hell for you. Because you have ruined both LFD of a possible customer and you've ruined the whole industry of a possible customer when that guy smokes that and it's way too much for them right off the bat. Anyway, all right. Now getting a little bit off of prepping the person for the cigar and actually getting to the cigar. Aside from strength not really mattering, in my opinion, and I do think it's by the person, but I'll touch on that in a minute. Construction matters way more than strength. And this is something that I don't think gets enough attention. And I'm guilty of it as well. I've been guilty of saying that you ought to have some cheap cigars on hand, like if you're at a barbecue or an event or something like that. So if you're having a cigar, somebody's like, oh, can I have a cigar with you? And you give them one of the cheap ones because you think, they're going to smoke like an inch of it and they're going to abandon the rest of it. And I don't want to give them a good one. That's fair, but don't make it a shitty cheap one. You know, there are cheap cigars out there. And then when I say cheap, I mean budget friendly. I don't mean quality wise. I'm literally specifically saying there are quality budget friendly cigars out there. McAuliffe Color Blend, Charter Oak. These are cigars that are affordable, but good quality. So have maybe some of those on hand. Okay. Look, nothing is inexpensive these days. So just get over the idea of being able to pack some $3 cigars in the humidor for your buddies. You're going to probably have to pony up at least $5 to $7 for some cigars for your buddies, to then sit and watch them die. You know, not your buddies, but the cigars, because your buddies smoke like an inch and a half of them and then abandon them. Okay. It's just the sacrifice you have to make. But yeah, construction matters more than strength. And so the question that I pose to you is, what is worse? A strong cigar that burns perfectly or a mild cigar that constantly tunnels, plugs, and requires relights? And more people are going to tell you that the construction problems are more of a pain in the ass than the strength. The simple fact of the matter is, if you are smoking a cigar, and maybe it's a little too strong for your taste, but it's smoking wonderfully, you're going to enjoy that experience exponentially more than you would one that is in your typical flavor strength wheelhouse, but smokes like shit. You're going to be wrestling with it the whole time, hitting it with fire, clipping this, dealing with tunneling, whatever it happens to be. you're going to enjoy the experience of the stronger cigar that burns wonderfully way more than the more mild one that burns like shit. And so that's what I'm saying. Construction truly matters. Now, there are 4 basic components to construction that we need to keep in mind. First is the draw. The draw is how easily air passes through the cigar when you puff on it. If it's too tight and hard to pull smoke through, you end up with hot smoke, you end up with bitterness, and ultimately, it's frustrating as hell. If it's too loose, it's going to burn too fast. You're going to end up with kind of a thinning flavor. And quite frankly, that smoke is going to be kind of harsh. It's gonna be hot as well, and it's going to be a little harsh. In the perfect situation, you have a nice, easy resistance, and it's like sipping a drink through a straw. That's the best way to describe it. You should not feel as though you're trying to suck a milkshake through a coffee stir. It should be a nice, smooth draw. You all know it. So that's the draw that we're looking for. Don't give somebody a cigar that maybe the draw, doesn't typically go that direction on the regular. Burn. How evenly does the cigar burn across the foot? Common problems include tunneling. Cigar burns faster than the edges, meaning where you get that spearing effect. A lot of times this is caused by poor lighting and uneven tobacco moisture, that kind of thing. There's canoeing, where one side of the cigar burns faster than the other. This can happen from wind, moisture differences, construction issues, all kinds of things. And you know what? Look, is it the end of the world when your burn line is like slightly askew? No, it's not the end of the world. Does it suck when literally your cigar looks like Two-Face from Batman and half of it is lit and half of it is like, burned away? Yeah, that sucks. We don't want that. But that's, you're going to hopefully know that that's taking place before it gets that bad. Frequent relights. The cigar keeps going out. It sucks, guys. It sucks. You know it. I know it. Nobody likes their cigar to constantly be going out. Hell, we celebrate cigars that stay lit while we're talking for a long damn time. I'm sitting here jabbering along, and I've got the cigar, and I'm hoping to God that it's still lit every time I go to puff on it. Frequent relights can usually be a sign of over-humidification, but it can also be a sign of a tight draw or uneven packing. So they do kind of play with each other. Smoke production. I talk about it on here all the time. I want a cigar that really plumes the smoke. And good smoke production is a dense, visible smoke. Feels creamy or textured in the mouth. So there is mouthfeel to the smoke. And helps carry flavor to your palate. Poor smoke production, on the other hand, is when it's thin and wispy, muted flavor. You don't really get anything off of thin smoke, and often is caused by a tight draw or overly dry tobacco. Look, flavor, it rides the smoke. The smoke is the delivery vehicle for the flavor as you're smoking the cigar. So if the cigar isn't producing smoke, you're not going to get the full flavor experience of that cigar. It's just, the way that goes. Finally, the ash. The ash that's left behind as the cigar burns. One thing I do want to note. Ash color does not necessarily reliably tell you whether a cigar is good or bad. White ash is not automatically better than darker ash, for example. But what ash can tell you is how well the cigar is holding together. If the ash holds on tightly, it can tell you that it's a well-constructed cigar. It can tell you if the burn is even because, again, you can when you ash away in the ashtray, if the ash is flat and good, then the burn is nice and even around. And ultimately, like I said, it does tell you if the tobacco was packed consistently in the cigar in the rolling process. But like I said, don't chase the perfect white ash. Just focus on these new guys. Just need to focus on whether or not the cigar is burning properly and tastes good. But ultimately, that's what I mean when I talk about construction. And this is where, like I said, construction is more important than strength. It needs to have a comfortable draw. It needs to have an even burn. It needs to have consistent smoke production. And it needs to have an ash that holds relatively well and burns evenly. I'm not looking for it to hold the ash all the way down to the nub to where you can smoke the whole thing without dropping anything. But and that's a fun game to be played. We all have done it, but you don't have it. That it all plays a role. All those things play a role, and it allows the beginner to focus on the flavor of the cigar instead of fighting the cigar and making sure that the cigar is even burning properly. Because if it's a poorly constructed cigar, it's going to ruin the experience before anything else can take hold. So we want to make sure that a cigar or a beginner is getting a cigar the way it's supposed to be. So the other thing, real quick, that I want to touch on is kind of a myth, but something that I will say I've talked about, and my thinking has evolved on this. Over the years, so many people have expressed the idea that for beginners, we should have flavored cigars, infused, even sweet tipped, just simple sweet tips. And I'm not saying that those don't have a role in the industry. I'm not saying that there are people that, look, I'm not here to, yuck on your yum. If you like those, great. I enjoy them every once in a while, just as something different. Erica, my girlfriend, she smokes them all the time. That's all she smokes is the Tobacco Special. And that's fine. There's no judgment there. But what I'm saying is I think sometimes we automatically default to that as a beginner cigar. When somebody says, I want to have my first cigar, we automatically default to the flavored and infused, kind of thing. And we don't consider just a plain tobacco cigar. And so I have a few points as to why I don't necessarily think flavored cigars are the best place to start. And the first is you're tasting the flavoring more than you're tasting the tobacco. If somebody smokes a vanilla or a bourbon or a cherry or a coffee or a chocolate cigar, they're mostly learning what the added flavor tastes like. They're not learning about wrapper influence and the natural sweetness that you can get from some types of tobacco, the earthiness, the spice, the fermentation process. Let's be real. If a cigar is fermented properly, it's going to have a different flavor than maybe ones that don't. And maybe ones that don't sometimes have a little bit of extra flavoring put into them in order to mask that. Look, if I'm handing somebody a vanilla flavored cigar, they're learning about vanilla. They're not learning much about tobacco. And that's the whole point, is that they should be learning about tobacco. The second thing is that it creates an unrealistic expectation. If somebody's first cigar tastes like coffee or caramel, then when they move to a traditional cigar, they're going to be left wondering if that is the way it's supposed to be. And we don't want that. We don't want somebody to, be wondering where did the flavor go in the process. We want them to be enjoying the process. Which brings me to my third point. Cigars already have flavor, and we need to do a better job of promoting it. Now, mine's starting to go out. I'm talking too much, not smoking enough. We need to do a better job of promoting that. Now, granted, I understand that some people have trouble drawing flavor out of their cigar. That they say, oh, I just get tobacco. And that's fine. I'm not saying you need to get a whole bunch of intricate, crazy flavor notes that, only Mr. Jonathan can ever, formulate into a coherent thought. The simple fact of the matter is that cigars or different tobaccos have some natural flavors. Ones that maybe somebody doesn't realize they're picking up at the time, but if they just sit and concentrate and maybe they have somebody with them that's walking them through it, they can kind of pick up. I talk about it on here. I use general terms for the most part. Sweetness, nuttiness, baking spice, cocoa, creaminess, cedar, every once in a while. Those kind of things. If you just stick to the basics of a cigar flavor wheel and you don't get into like the deeper, concentrations on it, it's much easier for people to understand. So that's the thing. If you give them a flavor thing, they're never going to ever realize that some cigars have natural flavors that just hit the palate naturally. The next point that I want to make about this is beginners need a baseline. If you're giving them a flavored or infused cigar as their first cigar, you're kind of stunting their vocabulary right off the bat. They need to understand that there are different, tobacco types. And they need to know what tobacco tastes like. And before they can even begin to figure out the differences between Connecticut and Corojo and Cameroon and Habano and all the others, they need to know just what general tobacco tastes like. And if you're giving them something that tastes like, cherry cough syrup, that's what they're going to know. It's like if you were going to introduce somebody to wine tasting and you were going to sit them down and the first thing you gave them was like a Bartles and James wine cooler. Why would you do that? You wouldn't do that. You'd give them wine. Well, if you're sitting them down to have a cigar for the first time, don't give them, a flavored thing. Give them something real, something legitimate, And the thing is, again, I'd like to point out, none of this is meant to discourage people from trying flavored and infused things. I'm going to get to it before we get too far here. The whole goal of this is I think a beginner should try a lot of stuff. And flavored and infused is part of it. But maybe not right away. Maybe not first thing is where I've kind of evolved my thinking to be. I don't think that's necessarily the best place to start somebody. Because ultimately, before it's all said and done, it can create a false definition of what a cigar actually is. A beginner who starts exclusively with infused cigars, sweet tip cigars, flavored cigars, may conclude that that is what a cigar is. And when they try a traditional premium cigar, it feels dramatically different than what they believe a cigar is. And so what they're doing with the flavored thing is they're misidentifying a completely different category. I mean, it would be like, it's like when you talk to somebody and they say, oh yeah, I smoke cigars all the time. And what they're actually smoking are like backwoods or black and milds, We, as the premium cigar people, we turn our nose up at that. And we say, well, that's not a cigar. That's a gas station cigar, blah, 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 blah. But to them, that is a cigar. And what we're smoking is totally different. And that's what I'm saying, is that by introducing somebody, even if we're talking like one of the Deadwood, girl cigars from Drew Estate, or the Tobacco, or one of these other, by introducing that cigar first and not, doing this other thing, they define that as a cigar and whatever. And is it fair to that person to do that? I think part of it is, if they want to get the best well-rounded education about cigars, no, it's not necessarily fair to do that. Look, this is how it all breaks down. If you're going to teach somebody about steak, you're not going to hand them a steak just slathered in barbecue sauce. You're going to want them to taste what the steak tastes like first. And then if they want to add barbecue sauce, that's up to them. Now, if it's a good steak, they won't need it. But you get my point. But there's nothing wrong with flavored cigars. But if the goal is to educate somebody, if the goal is somebody's coming to you and saying, I'm interested in getting into cigars, I don't know where to start, or I want to have my first cigar, blah, blah, blah. You want that new cigar smoker to actually taste the tobacco and not the toppings. That's all. That's what it boils down to. So now, as I said earlier, as I teased earlier, what I'm going to do, because I feel as though it's important, as we've discussed all this, we're going to put together a starter pack. And what this is it's a 4-pack of cigars that I think cigar smoker, if somebody comes to you and says, I want to try cigars, I want to get into cigars, I want to have my first cigar, this is a way that you can do that. This is a 4-pack that allows them to try a variety of stuff, get their palate deeply, ingrained, and they can start to figure out, A, if they like it, B, what they like, because that's part of the fun, is figuring out what you like. So, again, we're doing a 4-pack. The first cigar in that 4-pack, it's the Mild Connecticut. It's the one you should do. I know I said that construction is more important than strength, but let's be real. We also need to make sure that it's not something that's going to slit their throat. There are some very, very good Connecticut mild cigars out there, and I don't think that's something that we should avoid. It's what we all started with. I know I started with it. My very first one, very first cigar, the very first cigar was a Macanudo in a tube that I had on a beach. But then fast forward 14 years. Yeah, 14 years. I had a Monte Cristo White series. I smoke that now. It's super mild, super light. But at the time, it was a cigar, and so that's the thing. We need to start with a mild cigar. Now, I have a couple candidates here, but these aren't necessarily the ones in my pack. I'm going to name my pack at the end of this. But in terms of candidates, we have the Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real. Quality cigar. Top seller. It's been around forever. It's one to consider. And quite frankly, I smoked the shit out of it in my first 6 months of smoking cigars. The Brick House Double Connecticut. Great cigar. Winning awards. And price point wise, it's nice. It's not super cheap. It's not the $5 cigar that it was when it first came out, but it's definitely not going to break the bank. And then the other one that I think is a good one that I know I smoked a lot of when I was new to smoking is the Arturo Fuente, the Chateau Fuente Natural. It's not a bad cigar. I think it was that one. I don't know. I have such a hard time identifying the Arturo Fuentes, but yeah, but that's a super mild Connecticut. It's one that I would recommend for somebody looking for a mild starter cigar. These cigars all teach the same things. They teach creaminess. They teach cedar, toast, nuts, subtle flavors. These are those early beginner cigars that you can give somebody and they can experience tobacco, but not experience something that's going to like kick them in the nuts or the ass if they don't have nuts. The next one in the pack that I think is important is the Habano. And that one, the goal of having a Habano in the pack is to teach spice and richness. Not necessarily strength, but definitely spice. You know, we want to introduce that, these cigars have spice to them, that it's a flavor component. They can be naturally kind of spicy. Get those little tingles on the tongue, like when you eat some spicy salsa, that kind of thing. And I have a couple of recommendations there. The first one I would recommend is the West Tampa Tobacco White. First of all, I had that a little bit back. Last couple months. I can't remember when. I had it in the Lancero. Holy shit, guys. If you haven't had the West Tampa White in the Lancero, you're missing out on a wonderful cigar. And I'm not one to promote Lanceros too much because I'm kind of with Dave in that Lanceros make my fingers look fat. But the West Tampa White Lancero is by far my favorite Vitola for that cigar. The flavor you get off of that thing is infinitely better than what you get off of the Toro. And quite frankly, the Toro is good. It's not my favorite of the West Tampas. But that West Tampa White in the Lancero, amazing. But it's a flavorful cigar. It's balanced. It has excellent construction, and it's not going to overwhelm a new smoker. But it's going to give them an idea that, hey, there's another level beyond the Connecticut. Another cigar that I want to recommend for this is the Aladino Classic. It has a Habano wrapper to it. It's got excellent construction, which, as I've pointed out, is super important. It has good traditional cigar flavor. It has some spice, but it's enough to be interesting, but not enough to overwhelm the smoker, which is good. And it's going to teach that smoker not just about Habano, but also because of those Corojo insides, it's going to teach them a little bit about Corojo tobacco as well. They're going to figure out, hey, this has got some different characteristics. They'll learn about pepper, they'll learn about earth, and quite frankly, so many cigars come from the Dominican or come from Nicaragua that it'd be nice to basically give Honduras a little bit of a place there too. Now the next one in the pack that I think is important for us to have, by the way, these are my recommendations, these cigars that I'm giving. These are my kind of pool that I'm going to be selecting from. But what I want you all to be thinking is okay, these are the categories that he's laying out. In this case, we've had Connecticut so far, and we've had mild Connecticut, and we've had a Habano. We've got 2 more categories left to go. With that being said, be thinking about what cigars you would put into a beginner pack, because that's what I'm really curious about. And we'll get to that in a little bit too, but, I'm very curious as to what cigars you would put into a beginner pack. But the third one in the beginner pack has to be a Maduro, because we have to destroy the myth that anything dark equals strong. Okay. We have to point out to them that just because it's a dark cigar doesn't mean it's going to kick your ass. So the first one that I would recommend there again, taking price point into account, a couple other things, is the Brick House Maduro. Another Brick House. Great construction. It's consistent. It's approachable. and it's a good price point. I think it checks a lot of boxes for you. Another one, also really good price point and a really good cigar, is the Charter Oak Connecticut Broadleaf Maduro. This is a good choice because it also can teach what broadleaf tastes like. So now you're not just teaching about Maduro, which, going back to my wrapper episode that I did a little bit back, is a curing process and not an actual tobacco type. But the broadleaf is a tobacco type. So now you're introducing both a curing process and a tobacco type, and that's pretty cool. But a Maduro cigar is ultimately gonna likely, in a perfect world, teach this smoker about getting chocolate notes from a cigar, espresso notes from a cigar, maybe a natural sweetness, and then obviously the Charter Oak's going to give you broadleaf characteristics that you can talk about as well. The whole goal of this is to give them something dark so that they realize that they can smoke it and not be scared of it, because we don't want somebody scared of a cigar. Finally, the last one that we have is I kind of made it a wild card. I opted for Cameroon. You can opt for whatever you want. If you want to throw a Candela in for that fourth one, if you want to throw a Sumatra into that fourth one, I opted for Cameroon. And I opted for Cameroon because Cameroon tends to offer the cigar smoker a sweet spice, toast, cedar, and it has a unique wrapper character. It's different than these others. And when we're talking about a new smoker, I don't want to give them something that, quite frankly, can be a little controversial. I mean, Sumatra is one of those wrapper types that some people like it, some people don't. I really haven't heard that many people dislike Cameroon. I'm not saying that there aren't people that don't dislike Cameroon, or that dislike, you know what I mean? I'm not saying some people don't, hate Cameroon, but I feel like the Sumatra is a little bit more controversial. And Candela, quite frankly, it's not that many good Candelas for me to even recommend, and I didn't want to go down that road. So, you can do something different, but I went with Cameroon. Now, Cameroon, look, you got the Arturo Fuente, Hemingway, the Don Carlos. I mean, there's so many Cameroon cigars from Arturo Fuente, and we know that Fuente makes good cigars, so any one of those would be a good option. However, the one that I really, really want to highlight is the Aladino Cameroon, because it's not just Cameroon. It's a Cameroon wrapper over that Aladino Corojo base. So you're going to get that Cameroon sweetness, that Cameroon spice, but you're also going to get that Corojo earthiness and that Corojo spice all at the same time. And it's nice. It shows kind of how a wrapper and a binder and filler can work together to create a unique blend. Ultimately, if you want proof that wrappers matter, smoke an Aladino Corojo and then turn around and smoke an Aladino Cameroon. Same family of cigars, same binder, same filler, totally different smoking experiences. And that's, I think, a really good educational moment for a new cigar smoker that's trying things out. So, what is my final pack? Again, I gave you guys a couple of recommendations for each category. But ultimately, what my final pack, my 4-pack, my beginner 4-pack, for the Connecticut, I think we have to go with the big dog in the room. We got to go with the Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real. I feel like that's the best possible starting choice. It's got a brand name that new cigar smokers are going to recognize. And much like McDonald's, where you can go anywhere and buy a Big Mac and it's going to taste exactly the same in Spokane, Washington, as it's going to taste in Orlando, Florida, as it's going to taste in BFE, Minnesota. The Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real always tastes the same. And it's a good cigar. It smokes wonderfully. Construction on it is typically, I mean, look, they're handmade products. You can always get a dud. But to be honest, it's not one you have to worry about generally. So I'm going with the Romeo y Julieta Reserva Real for my Connecticut category. For the Habano category, if I didn't make it obvious, the West Tampa White. That West Tampa White is flavorful and balanced, and I would 100% recommend that as a Habano option. Now, you guys might be sitting there thinking like, well, wait a minute, Nick, didn't you say that the Perdomo Habano Sungrown was like your top cigar that you smoked last year? Yeah, it is. But it's a nicotine bomb, and it's not one that I'm recommending to new cigar smokers. There are some brands you got to work your way up to, and Perdomo's one of them that you got to work your way up to it. For the Maduro, I would recommend the Charter Oak Connecticut Broadleaf Maduro. I think that one, you not only have the ability to showcase the Maduro curing process, but also you get that broadleaf wrapper, and you give those new smokers something new and different to experience. And then finally, for my wild card, should be super obvious, I went with the Aladino Cameroon. Aladino Cameroon is a fantastic smoke. It's super flavorful, and quite frankly, it offers a very unique smoking experience for new smokers that want to learn the importance of a wrapper in the blending process. They get to learn how a wrapper makes a difference on a cigar. Especially, like I said, if you have them sit and they smoke Cameroon, Aladino Cameroon, and then they turn around and smoke a regular, Aladino Corojo, they're going to learn real quick the difference between those two cigars, and it's totally down to the wrapper. So that would be my recommendation there. Now, that was my pack. And I want to know what your pack is. I want you to call the hotline. Area code 863-874-0000. That's 863-874-0000. Or tofu pie with no E, 0000. And call in and tell me your pack. Call in and tell me, God damn this fly. I shot him with my salt gun earlier, and I must have grazed him, and now this little bastard is back, and I am going to kill him because he is pissing me right off. But now I've also got my electric fly swatter, and now he's gone. He's only been kamikazing my face, and now he's decided, oh, there he is. But he's by the light. I don't know if I can get him. Anyway, I want you to call in and tell me what your first cigar was. Because, I think that's important to know. Where did we all start? I told you, I started with the Monte Cristo White series. Where did we all start? And then from there, give me your 4-pack. Really put some thought into it. Really, think about like, okay, in these 4 categories, which one do I think was the best one that if I'm a brand new cigar smoker, I could try and I wouldn't be, on my ass and regretting the experience. But make it something good, and we can go from there. Now, my only other final tips that if you have somebody that's expressing interest in cigars, tips that you should tell them. The first thing would be find a good local cigar shop. And if you can't, there are some online places, but quite frankly, the online places you got to be careful with, depending upon, whatever. Again, I recommend twoguyscigars.com, and it's not just because they pay me. But yeah, I think, and the beauty of that is you're still supporting a brick and mortar. It's just, They have a really good, robust online experience too. But find a good local shop because they're going to get a lot from having a good local tobacconist that they can work with. Hopefully, it's a good local tobacconist. The next thing that beginners need to keep in mind, sampler packs. Sampler pack, sampler pack, sampler pack, sampler pack. As many sampler packs as you can get your hands on. Get them. Try them. Smoke them. Because the thing about sampler packs, is it encourages variety. I remember for my first year of smoking, I will say, not even quite. So for the first 3 or 4 months, I stayed in my lane. I smoked Monte Cristos, I smoked Romeos, and at some point or another, I went to the shop and they were out of the Romeos, and that's when I picked up some Fuentes, and I smoked the shit out of those for a long time, and it was one of those things where I found something that I liked, and I didn't want to deviate from it, and I don't recommend that. I had an amazing time. I had an amazing time. Once my world opened up and I was willing to try the other stuff on the shelf. When I was finally able to stop being scared of brands I didn't recognize or shades of brown that seemed too dark for me, that kind of thing. Dead. Caught you little fucker. Yeah. Ooh, he popped. I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but my electric fly swatter, he popped. Ha-ha. Anyway, once I started experimenting around, trying different cigars, it's like the humidor just opened up and embraced me. And that is what I want for all of you and your friends. So sampler packs are a good way of doing that because it forces you to do it. LFD has a new sampler pack out. I saw it at Total Wine the other day. Man, I don't know if it's the MSRP or if Total Wine's getting a lot, but they're getting a lot for a sampler pack. But it is 5 cigars. It's 5 cigars, but it's like $68. It has something for everybody in that sampler pack. It goes from the Suave, on up. I mean, so it's not just the slit your throat LFDs. It's a variety of different LFD cigars to showcase that they can do a variety of different things. And that's good. You should do that. If you're looking to try different things, sampler packs are your friends. And in the process of that, you're going to try different wrappers. And ultimately, before it's all said and done, you're going to learn your palate. And that's the goal. So, anyway, there you go, guys. That is my TED Talk today on 4 cigars I'd hand a new cigar smoker and kind of why. What we would do with a new cigar smoker that inquires and says, hey, I'm curious about having a cigar. What should I have? Here you go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on into this now. It's time for the Villiger Cigars Entertainment Report, brought to you by
Villiger.
Villiger Cigars, one of the leading cigar and cigarello manufacturers in the world, founded in 1888 and still family-owned and operated. Head over to VilligerCigars.com and check the store locator to find a shop near you that carries them. We guarantee that Villiger Cigars will be a wonderful addition to your humidor and cigar rotation. So, what have I been watching lately? I went to the movies, and I saw Masters of the Universe. And guys, I understand that Masters of the Universe didn't exactly set the world on fire with its box office results. But I will say that I was thoroughly enjoying it. It's fun. I mean, it is a straight 80s cartoon brought to life. I really enjoyed it. And if you are anything like me, to where you watched Masters of the Universe when you were a kid, it gave me a lot of wonderful feels in the tum-tum. It was wonderful. I mean, I had such a great time with that movie. It does not deserve to be suffering the box office that it is. Now, the beauty of it is Amazon produced it. And Amazon has flat out said, we don't really give a shit what it does in the theater. They weren't even going to put it in the theater. We're lucky it even came to the theater. They were thinking about just throwing it on streaming. But it came to the theater. And that's fine. That's good. I got to see it on the big screen. But realistically, they're doing this because they want to branch out and create a bunch more movies. And so they got to start somewhere. And they did. Jared Leto as Skeletor was by far the best part of that movie. It's not to say that like the other people weren't good, but he was fucking great. Like great. It was awesome. And honestly, thoroughly enjoyed Masters of the Universe. Now, what I will say, where I am disappointed, is that I don't know if they meant to. They got a little bit too crafty with a couple of double meaning jokes. And what I mean by that is there are two characters. Anybody that knows Masters of the Universe lore, you got He-Man, of course, and Skeletor and all that. But He-Man has a couple of friends. One of them has a giant metal fist, and he punches things. And in 1980s innocence, they named him Fisto. So you can only imagine some of the jokes that came along from Fisto. And then there was Ram Man, who was short and had a helmet, and he would kind of spring forward and bash people with his helmet like a battering ram. And the combination of those two characters resulted in quite a few double entendres. And quite frankly, they could have been done without. We could have done once or twice, fine. We got a lot of them. And that was the only thing that I'm like, we probably could have scaled that back a little bit. But that's me being picky. All in all, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was quality. And, the other big thing that I regret is that for whatever reason, my drive-in decided not to carry it. They went with all horror this past weekend. Scream 7 and Scary Movie 6 on one screen, and Obsession and Backrooms on the other screen. So it was all horror. And I'm just like, fuck this. I am not into that. And so I have yet to make it to the drive-in because of that. Now, this weekend, they have Disclosure Day and E.T. on one screen, and then they have Scary Movie and Obsession on the other screen. Again, Scary Movie, I might, it's comedy, so like that one I might, watch. But like Obsession, I've been told that's like one of the scariest movies you could see, and quite frankly, I don't want that. I don't need that in my life. And in terms of Disclosure Day and E.T., quite frankly, Disclosure Day, I feel like that is Hollywood telling us, get ready, guys, we're probably going to hear that aliens are real, like sooner rather than later, because the government keeps dripping, information out. So maybe they're getting us ready. Who knows? And E.T., I've never really cared for E.T. There's my hot take. Hot take, never truly cared for E.T. I thought, I just always thought it was boring. I don't care for it. It was never a favorite movie of mine growing up. And so I have no love for E.T. So going to see it at the drive-in, boring. Anyway, that's that. What else have I been watching lately? Super random. Super random. Today, as I record this, is the first day of play in the 2026 World Cup. Now, some people are like, fuck soccer. And admittedly, I don't know really shit about soccer. I watched Ted Lasso, and I enjoyed that. I have no clue where to even think about jumping in on that. Like, soccer confuses the piss out of me, or football, or whatever you want to call it. The leagues, the different leagues, and the going up and down, and you play too but poorly, so you drop into this league, and then you play better in that league, so then you advance back into this league. And I don't understand all the leagues. Here in the United States, we have the MLS, but like, I don't know any of this. Okay, so I don't know enough about the different football leagues. But the World Cup I can understand, because the World Cup is just countries. They bring the best players theoretically from their country onto one team, and they play against teams from other countries. I think there's like 46 or 48 countries playing in it. Earlier today, I actually sat and watched a soccer game. I watched Mexico versus South Africa. It was the first game of the 2026 World Cup. And there were 3 red cards in that game, which apparently when you get a red card, you're booted. I didn't know that. But 3 red cards, which is the most ever in a was it in a World Cup game, or most ever in the first game of a World Cup? I don't know. Anyway, it was some sort of record. But Mexico ended up winning that 2-0. And it was exciting when they scored. Now, granted, it was an awful lot of like kick, and then eventually maybe somebody scored. When they did make attempts on goal, it was exciting. Most of the time, it's a whole lot of boop, 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 that kind of thing. And that was less than thrilling. But I feel like this is a thing where if I just kind of passively watch it, then as it goes, because for fuck's sake, this tournament started today, June 11th, and I think it ends like July 19th. It's like over a month of soccer play, all right? So realistically, it is a lot of stuff. And with that many teams involved, you have a ton of games. So like, am I going to be sitting and watching every game of the World Cup? Absolutely not. But you know what? I'll watch it. I'll watch some of it. Now look, FIFA is a corrupt fucking organization. We've all heard the stories about that. They'll sell the location to the highest bidder. And this year the North American countries got it between Mexico and the United States and Canada. But it is what it is. And we won't get into all the other parts about FIFA that I don't want to talk about, but there's a lot there. But taking all that away and just looking at it from an entertainment value standpoint, I was entertained by that Mexico and South Africa game. And as I sit here talking to you right now on that TV, I have Korea versus, who the fuck is that? CZE? See if I can pause it. Chechnya? Chechnya? Whatever. Who cares? Some fucking country. Anyway, it's a bunch of Asian guys running around against a lot of like blonde white guys. Yeah, we're 45 minutes into this thing, which I learned is half. I learned it's 2 halves, 2 45-minute halves. I've learned things today. 2 45-minute halves. And then I guess they don't stop the clock. So what ends up happening is like when something happens, the clock keeps running and they just keep track. So then at the end of 90 minutes of play, they tack on however many minutes of like play stoppage took place during the game. So if let's say like somebody gets like hurt and they have to haul them off the field, and let's say that takes 3 minutes, those 3 minutes are tacked on at the end of the game. I didn't know that. But anyway, so we're at the half now, and apparently they must do that for every half because we are now at 45 minutes and 17 seconds, and they have a little +3 in red next to the clock. So it looks like we've added 3 minutes to this half, and then they'll stop. But currently, it is 0-0. And so this is a little bit more boring of a game than the Mexico-South Africa game. South Africa fell apart. They were scored on pretty early, and they never got out of that. They ended up having 2 of their players red carded off the team, so they were down to only 9 players at one point, and then Mexico scored again. Apparently, the second goal was a big deal because the guy who did it had some sort of injury where he cracked his skull or some shit. I don't know, pretty bad. And they thought that he wasn't going to come back to ever play again. And then now he's back and he's on the World Cup team and he actually scored a World Cup goal. And it was a big freaking, and his dad just passed away, not too terribly long ago. So he's tearing up on the field because he scored this goal because A, he shouldn't be there after his skull got cracked. And B, his dad wasn't in the box that he normally was in to watch him, do that. So it's sad, but kind of cool. But anyway, I'm learning things. I'm expanding my horizons a little bit. It's not just pro wrestling, guys. I can watch other things. But anyway, so I've been watching the World Cup. So there we go. All right, let's move on and do this now.
Guess what, motherfucker?
It's time for 3 cigars we smoked and enjoyed this week. Now, my first one is one. It's actually a little similar to the one that I'm smoking right now, this Diamond Crown, which, by the way, I haven't really talked about. This Diamond Crown is really good. Super smooth, super creamy. A little bit of spice to it. A little bit of, it's just a great cigar. It's one of their premium ones at JC Newman, and it smokes like it. It's a good cigar. And normally it would be a in the morning with a cup of coffee cigar for me, but it's the first cigar I've had today. I've only had the one, which I got to get my numbers up. I was looking at my list, tracking out my cigar smoking for the year, and I threw that into the AI and was like, what am I on track for? And I got to get my smoking numbers up. 1 a day is not doing it. I need to be averaging something like 2.5 a day to get to where I want to be. So I gotta pick this up a little bit. But anyway, the first one I want to highlight is the JC Newman Tampa Smokers. And that was one that was gifted to me by Jeff Andreezy, and really good. Creamy, relatively mild, smoked wonderfully, and celebrated the Tampa baseball team, the way back baseball team, that was the Smokers. And so that's pretty cool. The next one I smoked was the Henry Clay Warhawk Rebellious, and I love that cigar. It's so good. And that was a gift from Danny. So I have that one to thank him for. And I did a little looking. I had to do a little looking because I smoked that on the last show, and so I needed the makeup of that cigar. And I may have found it online. And so it's at a place that I'm like, do I order it? Do I not order it? Do I order it? Do I not order it? It's not my normal place to order. Let's put it that way. But the price is right, and I don't know if it's just maybe not moving, and so that's why they're marking it down or what the deal is. But anyway, the point is I'm super tempted, and I think I'm going to buy a box because I don't have enough of those in my life, and I would like more. Finally, the last one that I smoked was I don't know where the hell I got this. It was a limited edition Blackbird, the Cactus Wren. It has do I have it here? What happened to it? Here it is. I do have it here. It's a green, kind of a lime green band. It was a short run, Cactus Wren short run. Super good, very flavorful, earthy, kind of a dark cigar, earthy, good cigar. And I smoked the shit out of that the other night watching wrestling, and I enjoyed it a lot. So, Yeah, Blackbird, Cactus Wren, one of their short run cigars. Hopefully, maybe it ends up in that they're doing that sampler pack at the end of the year of some of their different short run cigars to celebrate their 10 years in operation. Maybe it makes it into that box as one of the ones in that sampler. If that's the case, it's a good one. So you should try that. Anyway, so that's what I've smoked and enjoyed this week. Well, guys, it's that time where I tell you that I am available on Instagram at, knocked over my cigar rest there. On Instagram at the Cigar Pulpit. I am on Facebook where we have the Pulpit Parishioners group. You can get in on the fun. It's a private group. Find that. Ask for permission to join. I will let you in, and then you can share what you're smoking and get in on the fun there. Apparently, we're debating today what color my hair is. Yes. This is a debate. I contend my hair was red. As you can tell by my beard, my hair was kind of an auburn red color. But my hair turned more brown as I got older. It just muted. The red kind of muted and became more brown. Now, in the sun, in the light, it used to reflect red when the light would hit it. But I've gotten older. And stress has caught up to me. And a lot of different things have happened. I got divorced. All kinds of shit happened in my life. To where a lot more gray has crept in. So now I contend that my hair is brown with gray. Okay? There's definitely gray. I'm not saying there's no gray. I'm not dismissing the gray. There is gray. But some of the descriptives of what my hair color is that's happening in this group is amusing to me. And some of them I'm like, can you people not fucking see? I don't understand. But anyway, be that as it may, this is the kind of shit we do in the Parishioners group on Facebook. Also, I'm on Twitter /X. You can watch this on Rumble and YouTube. Speaking of Rumble and YouTube, every Wednesday at 7 a.m., I put out a drive time review where I drive in the car and smoke a cigar and I review it. Relatively short videos, and you can watch those, like I said, on Rumble and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Central. This week's was interesting. This week I did the McAuliffe color blend, and I had more technical problems than I can possibly imagine. And so, that one sucked. I got a review out. But for those of you who see it, it's not my typical drive time review. Let's put it that way. What else? Oh, Ask the Pulpit. I need you to call the hotline. Area code 863-874-0000. Put that in your phone. Save it in your phone right now as Cigar Pulpit. And put that in your phone. 863-874-0000. Or Tofu Pie with no E. 0000 and save it, and then that way you can call me, and you can call me and tell me what your cigar pack is for beginners and what your first cigar was, because I think that would be interesting for all of us to put together our beginner packs. Finally, there is the Cigar Chronicle newsletter. You can go over to cigarpulpit.com. A little box pops up, put in your email there, and once a month I will send you a newsletter. I will be working on that this weekend. That will be going out Monday at the latest, but this weekend I will be working on that. So we will have the Chronicle coming out here soon. So if you want to get in on that, sign up now, and you'll be able to be sliding in right at the last minute before the next one goes out. There you go. I think that's it. I think that's all the business of the day. Guys, thank you so much for taking time out. I appreciate it. And I think I managed to do this before the storms rolled through, or maybe I've completely missed the storms and they were nothing. I mean, the weather people in this area for the last 3 days have basically been like, hell's coming on Thursday. And like, I don't know, maybe it didn't. But anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something. And if you're going to talk to your friends who've never smoked cigars before, but are encouraged, but are interested in trying a cigar, think about what I said and, give them a good starter that starts their journey off well. This has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpits. I'm Nick. Everybody, stay safe and stay smoky.